Hi everybody. So I just wanted to do a quick video about the new scandal that's been hitting the news cycle recently about Trump and Russia. And people have been kind of making this out to be like the next Watergate, which, yeah, I think that has some merit to it. We don't know a lot of, I should say, we don't know all the facts really yet, but what we know is pretty alarming, and it's going to be interesting to find out exactly what happened and just how deep this goes. I mean, this could be kind of like a conspiracy type situation where we're learning about like things that happened during the campaign, and things maybe even about WikiLeaks and their involvement there. So a lot still has to come to light before we can kind of have a final assessment of all this. But I want to lay the facts out there from my perspective now, and hopefully, if we still have a world to live in, we can see how that compares to when we know everything about this. I'm telling you. I mean, people, they're really concerned that this is like the next Cold War, and we're like on the brink of nuclear annihilation. Um, and people, they're kidding about it. I think it's more or less a kidding thing, but also not, because we have to kind of remember we're dealing with Trump. We're dealing with someone who is a really incompetent fool, who, if you've seen the press conference where he was asked by a Jewish journalist about the uptick of anti-Semitic violence and hate crimes, and Trump just, oh, this is a simple question. I can't like have more than like 4 words in my brain at the same time. So could you just like sit down, please? Oh my God, made me wanna like buy a ticket to Canada. Like I couldn't tell you how ashamed I was that he was actually the president. Of course, I'm not responsible for that. I didn't vote for him, but what are you gonna do? One quick thing is, I think it's important to note that with Russia, it's certainly an important thing that we have to, work on, investigate further, and honestly, we have to press the administration because they're going to want to probably cover up whatever sensitive information they have about this. Um, so we have to be vigilant, but we have to also be vigilant on other issues too, other important issues. And I think it's very important because the Democrats have struggled with their messaging. That was, a problem from this past election, is that the white working class voters, a lot of them went for Trump, and it was also like where they did in the battleground states. That's how he won the electoral vote. And Hillary Clinton, and I shouldn't necessarily just say her, it probably is other people in her team. They made a conscious effort to not really campaign very hard in these states, and it was known as the Democratic Firewall. That she really had this kind of hubris that she was going to win those states, and whatever happens happens. That's just the way it is. Well, I think that read of the situation was just wrong, and there was evidence to support that. So I understand that it was a strategic choice for her to not do that. I just disagree, and I think that was wrong. I don't think I really think you can try and court those voters, appeal to them, and also appeal to minorities. I understand that some of those people just won't vote for her. I think that is definitely true, but my problem is she didn't even try that hard. I mean, look, she didn't even really appear in Wisconsin, for as one example. A lot of times she would send Bill Clinton to go out and speak for her. And not only that, though, it was the Democratic platform was actually very progressive and good. But I've been over this before. During the debates and when Clinton would speak, she wouldn't harp on it nearly enough. She would talk all about how Trump called Miss Universe something. So we have to we have to take this seriously. It's not just some popularity competition. So that's my grievance with that. But yeah, we have to stand up for important issues and not just get sidetracked, on Russia because of the messaging. Because we have to show that we're going to fight Trump relentlessly. Not just for the corruption, but for his really bad policy. For example, the Dakota Access Pipeline. Obama, he took away the last permission, the last grant. I'm not sure exactly what it was that he, like he stopped some kind of request or permit. It was a permit, yeah. And so he was able to halt that temporarily, and then Trump changed all that. And by the way, Trump had stock in this pipeline. Excuse me. He had a vested business interest in this pipeline. They say that he sold his shares, and I've seen no evidence of that. He's not come out publicly and said that he's removed his interest from this. He also okayed the Keystone XL pipeline. Healthcare, and that's an issue where the Republicans are kind of losing. They're realizing that they're going to lose popularity if they take away people's health care. But it's still an open question as to what the future of health care really is. So that's important. Trump repealed provisions of Dodd-Frank, and some of the best ones, actually. Because Dodd-Frank is not perfect, of course, but he's trying to get rid of the Consumer Protection Bureau, which was a brainchild of Elizabeth Warren, and it was designed to help people who were ripped off and defrauded from the economic recession, and these kind of scams still happen today, and people get restitution for this. So to say that he's like sticking it out for the middleman and he really cares that they really cares about the average person, no, that's not. You're mistaken there. So let's go over the facts with Russia and discuss that. I just wanted to point out that we have to talk about other things too, not get just laser focused so that we just never talk about any other issue. But yeah, it is important. So why was Flynn fired from being National Security Advisor? He actually resigned / Trump asked for his resignation. Yeah, that's not shady. So Flynn supposedly made a phone call to the Russian ambassador. This was before Trump was inaugurated, but he was president-elect at the time. And they discussed sanctions that Obama placed on Russia. He expelled Russian diplomats from the country. And Flynn supposedly said that you don't have to worry, we're going to reconsider the sanctions when Trump is president. And he also misled the vice president, Mike Pence, in some way and kind of left him out in the cold. So there was a lack of coordination. That was a problem. But we have to kind of figure out why Flynn lied about this, supposedly. And this brought other allegations to light. And it turns out there may have been coordination between Trump, his campaign, and Russia throughout the election, and now continuing. So, and it's not just Flynn. Apparently, there's other people who have ties in some way. I know Rex Tillerson, who is Exxon CEO, former, and now the Secretary of State, did personal business dealings with Putin, and that can't be good to have that. I mean, Trump. I just said like he has vested interest. Excuse me. In the Dakota Access Pipeline. So Trump has oil on the brain, and this is how Russia runs its economy. They're a petrostate. So this is just the way the things work, and I suspect it is certainly cronyism that's influencing all this. So that's why you need an investigation. Trump needs to release his tax returns. This is a huge problem because we don't know the full extent of his corruption. We can only get bits and pieces right now. And supposedly people know that Trump, his organization, had dealings with Russia in the past. But, I mean, yeah, maybe you can't tie it to what's going on now, I understand. But if you release your tax returns, then yeah, we're going to get a better idea of what's going on. And I think Trump consciously knows that if he does that, or if the tax returns get leaked, that people are going to probably see some shady stuff that is going to make his disapproval ratings drop even more, if that's even possible. And finally, I'll just conclude with what is a good policy for the U.S. to take on Russia, and it's a pretty complicated discussion to have. We've had a very checkered past with Russia, dating back to the Cold War and up until now, where a lot of it is a give and take kind of thing, where the U.S. would kind of act shitty towards Russia. Russia would do something in retaliation, and back and forth, back and forth. Of course, the Soviet Union collapsed, and they became more, far right, more capitalistic, with Putin now. And like I said, it's a petrostate. Their economy is based around oil and the energy market, basically. So it makes total sense to me why Putin would prefer Trump, because he's going to be more open to that kind of business. I know people, they want to talk about Clinton and the fracking and all that, but you know what? This is an issue where I'm going to stand up and defend Clinton. Because look, even if I don't really necessarily buy that, like, fracking was just going to explode under her, and then you'd see more fracking than ever. I don't necessarily buy into that. Maybe she'd be okay with it happening, at the extent that it is, but I don't buy that she is just going to ignore climate change and ignore what the liberals say, and she wouldn't have changed Obama's decision on Dakota Access or Keystone XL. I really don't buy that she would have reversed that. So she's just not equal to Trump on that issue. Maybe you could find one issue where her and Trump are the same, or something to that extent. But no, on climate change, Trump doesn't even admit climate change exists. So it's no contest there. So the sanctions in 2016, post-election, that Obama put on Russia, and he expelled Russian diplomats, caused a big controversy at the time. I had very trouble talking during these videos. So I don't know if I agree with those sanctions, and more from a strategic standpoint, I think, because it seems to me like they aren't doing anything to help the situation. We're standoffish at this point, and things are tense now with the sanctions. So I just don't see what point they really do. I don't think it is conducive to a healthier policy in any way. Is it going to force Russia to do anything? Probably not. So we also had sanctions related to Crimea and what Russia did there. Now that issue is a little bit more complicated because what Russia did was wrong, and it involved a lot of brutality in annexing this section of Ukraine where um, ethnically they're more Russian, but I mean like they just had Russian military in there, and people were being intimidated. So I would say like the annexing, the taking of Crimea is not so much what was wrong. Like if you wanted to do it in a diplomatic way, I would probably be more okay with that. But that's not what really happened. It wasn't really fair what Russia did. So the sanctions for that make a lot of sense, and Trump is pushing back, kind of, and going off his promise in the campaign that he was going to kind of be more nice to Russia. However, though, he does still say that he wants a good relationship with Russia, but he said that he expects Crimea back. Crimea was taken, but it was, in all fairness. Um, I think that we do have to be careful, though, and it's not just some like backroom dispute, and it's not something that you're just going to like exchange words over, and it's all of a sudden it's going to resolve itself. It's going to require a lot of negotiating and a lot of diplomacy in order to get a peaceful solution here. So Trump he's trying to appear strong. I think that's clear. And he's doing that in response to the Democrats, and they want to push him, I think. But, be careful what you wish for, because Trump is the kind of guy who has a fragile ego, and I think that he may react in a way that people are not, may not agree with. And I understand, that they want him to do something about Russia, but this guy is not very trustworthy, so you just got to be careful, I think. And, maybe a lot of this is inevitable. I just don't know. Maybe Trump, maybe he just wants to be strong no matter what is done to him, and he'll react in some way. But, in terms of what the Democrats should do, they should try to encourage a peaceful foreign policy, and not something that's going to just be embittered conflict, something that doesn't get resolved. I have a feeling that that's more what's going on, and it's kind of an escalation with Russia. So I don't want to view it in that way, in that framing, as in like it's like a tug of war in this battle between two imperialist giants. What I think we should do, and this is what my solution would be, is we try to expose and limit corruption and cronyism. That's what the investigation is all about. We have to know exactly everything that was going on during the Trump campaign related to Russia, what people in the campaign were saying, all these things we have to know, and Trump has to release his tax returns. Then after we clean house in that way, what we should do is work together in areas that are positive with Russia. For example, in Syria, Russia has been bombing ISIS. They've been bombing rebel groups that are trying to take out Assad. And Assad is not a great guy, certainly not. But we have to, keep in mind here that if Assad is ousted out of power, and not in a way that's conducive, that's not a diplomatic transition from one leader to another. Even if that leader was just planted there by the U.S. If it's just a coup and he is ousted out, and that's it, there's going to be a power vacuum, and that's not good for that region either, because then it's going to turn into a theocracy then. So I think it's important to maintain stability there. And if Russia wants to help us in the fight against ISIS and other jihadist groups, then by all means we should work with them and do that. And also, yeah, do it in a way that's going to limit civilian casualties, which, Russia is just as guilty as us in that category, and they have hurt other civilians too. But yeah, it's the same goal, and we should try to get on the same page there. And in areas where we oppose Russia, we apply economic pressure. And I think that's what we do. I mean, our response should not be hot button, hair trigger type thinking. I mean, these a lot of these countries that are kind of considered our enemies, North Korea, Iran, and even Russia, are like violating these treaties and giving us warning signs like missile launches and things. And this is fairly common to expect. They're kind of testing the waters and seeing Trump's reactions. And so far, things have been okay and stable. But it's not really, what's the phrase I'm trying to say? Like, I don't think it's really all that. I don't necessarily think this is a new Cold War yet. I think it has the makings of it, perhaps, but it hasn't reached the point where we should really be very worried. And that's why the whole hysteria over it is a little bit overblown. It's important that we talk about it. It's important that we keep hammering the administration and getting all the information out. But we also have to have our own agenda. We can't lose track of that. By making ourselves different, we're going to have to contrast in our viewpoints on different issues. We have to oppose Trump in ways that are smart, and there's plenty of opportunity to do that. His positions and in terms of policy, what he's done, it's horrendous. We can oppose him and talk about the important issues. But if we get hung up on Russia, my fear is that this will be looked at as just a political witch hunt by most people. And they'll view the Democrats as selfish for trying to just oppose Trump and stall everything as much as possible with this investigation. Honestly, if I were the Democrats, I would say let's try and get this investigation going as soon as possible. We have lots of things to do. We should be very vigilant, of course. We should talk to as many people as possible, but let's get the ball rolling. Let's not try to delay at all. Let's get going, and in the meantime, and then after everything is all done, we're going to work on issues that are going to help Americans. And the Democrats can't afford to look like they're not fighting for everyday people. And I guess that's the kind of final conclusion there. Like, it cannot just be red team versus blue team and the establishment, the politicians in their little bubbles doing political chess. Because then it's gonna be a more disconnect. And what we need is more unity. We need more people wanting to have faith in the government. We want to have leaders that are really going to inspire change. And I don't know if you can get that from the Democrats now with the configuration they have in there. But I mean, we just got to keep pushing them and keep telling them the issues that matter to us.